Hello again and welcome to another Mordy and Glory, the Old World video. In today's episode, we shall be casting our ever critical eye over another Old World unit entry. Once again, we shall be returning to the Empire of Man and continuing to look at the professional infantry that is available to this faction. Last time we looked at the state troops and veteran state troops, really got into the nitty-gritty of those units. And if you haven't seen that video, don't worry, I'll make sure there's a link to it at the end of this one. Today, we are going to be looking at the state missile troops, those soldiers who are trained to deal death from afar. And so, without further ado, let's not mess around. Let's summon the elect accounts and charge right into this episode. As is tradition, let us begin with a brief overview of what the hell this unit actually is. As a whole, all state troops represent the full-time professional soldiers available to the Empire of Man. They are the standing army, ready to respond to any threat to the states, the provinces, and the Empire as a whole. And even during times of relative peace, the state troops are constantly performing duties such as being the city guard, the fire watch, and patrolling the lands, keeping roving bands of beastmen and gobos at bay. And the state troops that we are going to be looking at today are the ones armed with long-ranged missile weapons. To start off, let's have a gander at the stat line. Each state missile trooper has a movement of 4, meaning they can march 8 inches and can march in column 12 inches. They've also got a weapon skill of 3, a ballistic skill of 3, a strength of 3, a toughness of 3, 1 wound, initiative 3, 1 attack, and leadership 7. That is very human. State troops and human soldiers in general are famous for their stat lines just being full of 3s. That stat line represents very much a baseline for any profile, any infantry profile in the old world. There'll be more elite troops which might have a pip of extra weapon skill or ballistic skill, or maybe a pip of extra strength or toughness, and there'll be troops that are way more hoardy, way more like goblins and just masses of just bodies, and they tend to have stats which aren't as good. They'll have lower leadership, they'll have less weapon skill. So that stat line, it's not overly exciting, but it is perfectly reasonable and it will get the job done. One model in each squad can be upgraded to a sergeant, and he has exactly the same stat line, except he has ballistic skill 4. Now this is actually quite exceptional. It's worth remembering because most sergeants and squad leaders in the game get like an extra attack, but that doesn't really mean anything to state missile troops. They don't want to be anywhere near melee. So having the extra ballistic skill is nice. It shows a bit of care and attention to detail by the game designers, and it really pairs nicely with some of the upgrades you can get for the sergeant. And don't worry, we'll be going through those later on. Now, each state missile troop does cost 7 points per man, and that is, frankly, on the upper end of your core infantry scale. Your basic melee state trooper costs 5 points. And sure, he only comes with a hand weapon, and your state missile troops come with ranged weapons which are baked into their cost. But the basic melee state trooper comes with light armor, whereas your missile troops don't. As you'll see later on, you do have to pay for that. So it feels like a premium is definitely being placed on the ranged weapons that state troops bring to the table. Time will tell whether that premium is justified. At the moment, I would say 7 points is the upper limit of what I would personally want to spend on a standard state missile trooper. But moving on, there's a few other important details about these guys. Firstly, their troop type is regular infantry. This means if they get hit in the flanks, their ranks can be disrupted by an enemy unit that has a unit strength of 5 or more. Their base size is standard 25 by 25 mil, and the unit size is 10 plus unless you take them in a detachment, in which case you can take them in a squad of 5 plus. As standard, they come equipped with hand weapons and crossbow. Now, crossbows are actually a pretty bloody decent weapon. They have a 30-inch range, which allows them to outrange the vast majority of other ranged weapons out there. Your basic bow only has a range of 24 inches, and there are a lot that have got less than that. Short bows have got 18-inch range. You've then got all sorts of thrown weapons, javelins, slings, all that kind of stuff, which come in between sort of 9, 12, 18-inch ranges. There's all sorts of pistols, hand bows. There's a lot of different range weapons out there, and most of them will have less than a 30-inch range. Off the top of my head, the only weapons that I can think of which have actually got 30 inches or greater are longbows and elven longbows. That's it. So crossbows definitely are on the upper end of the range spectrum, and that's possibly one of their greatest strengths. It means that from the get-go, possibly even as early as turn 1, you are able to unleash volleys of these bolts, and they're pretty powerful. They come in at strength 4, which means they're actually a higher strength again than a lot of weapons like bows, which typically will be strength 3. War bows are the strength of the user, but most people using bows are also strength 3. Your melee troops tend to be the ones that have got the higher strength. So crossbows are going to have more range. They're going to have a good strength. That strength definitely helps them deal with monsters. There are a lot of monsters out there which are toughness 5. Your standard bow is going to be fishing for 6s to try and deal with them. Your crossbow will be wounding them on 5s. And there's even some monsters which are only toughness 4, which you'll be able to wound on 4s with crossbows. And there's loads of heavy infantry like Warriors of Chaos, which again, you'll be wounding on 4s. So the strength of 4 means that you can start threatening the bigger things with crossbows. It also means that light infantry you can be wounding on 3, standard infantry wounding on 3s, and you'll be able to threaten those difficult medium infantry guys as well. It does come with 2 special rules. It doesn't have any AP as standard, but it is Armor Bane 2. Wow. That's tasty. Armor Bane 2 means that when you roll a 6 to wound, the crossbow becomes AP minus 2. Oh, that's really good. If you unleash a storm of crossbow bolts into a oncoming horde of heavy infantry or oncoming lance of Bretonnian knights, and you start rolling those 6s, you are going to be pitching people into the dirt left, right, and center. The other special rule that they have is ponderous. This is actually it's a debuff. If you move and shoot with crossbows, rather than being -1 to hit, they actually suffer a -2 to hit. The big drawback from crossbows is they don't have volley fire. Bows, even though they often will have less range, less strength, less AP, can fire in multiple ranks. A regular bow, the whole front rank gets to fire, and then half of every other rank after that. Crossbows just don't have that. Only the front rank, the unit of crossbowmen, can fire. So if you've got a unit of crossbows, even if it's just a small one, that is 10 strong, and you've got 2 ranks of 5, you've paid for 10 blokes, but only 5 of those are going to be shooting each turn. The trade-off, of course, is that if you do have 2 ranks, if you take some casualties, your firepower doesn't go down, but you are essentially paying for just ablative wounds. The other option, of course, is you start deploying in quite long lines. There's nothing stopping you from taking those 10 crossbowmen and deploying them single file all the way across 1 rank of 10. The problem you'll get with that is now that everything's on a 25mm base or bigger, if you start deploying in long ranks of 10, you will find your deployment zone getting taken up very, very quickly. The way you can get around this is hills. Hills, if you've got a missile unit that's on a hill, everyone in that unit can shoot, no problem. I'm hoping that as Old World develops and the meta starts developing and terrain maps become standardized, that hills are going to become commonplace. Similar to in how 40k, every deployment zone on a competitive board has at least 2 decent ruins that you can hide your monsters behind so they get blown off the table in one go. I'm hoping that something similar will happen in Old World, where every deployment zone will have one big hill, one little hill, which will allow missile troops to actually function well without being frustrated that you want to take these big units and then they don't do very much because a lot of them can't even shoot. So crossbows are good. They've got range 30, strength 4, AP dash, armor bane 2, ponderous. They can only fire 1 rank. They've got all the good strength, all the good range. The problem is just if you don't have a hill, you're going to be struggling to get the whole unit to fire unless you start taking very small units. But here's the thing. State troops can upgrade their crossbows to black powder handguns for 1 point per model. And handguns are, well, they're interesting to say the least. They only have a 24-inch range, which is 6 inches less than a crossbow. I told you crossbows having a 30-inch range was quite a big deal. They're strength 4, which is the same as a crossbow. And they're ponderous, which is the same as a crossbow. But handguns come as standard at AP -1. No need to fish for those 6s to wound. But if you do get 6s to wound, they have armor bane 1. So a handgun has less range, but it has better inbuilt AP. But if both weapons roll a 6 to wound, then in total both weapons are AP -2. It's a real doozy which one you go for. And the age-old question, as long as Warhammer Fantasy has been a thing, as long as I've been aware of it and been playing it, has been crossbows or handguns. Which ones do you pick? Because crossbows have got the range, but they haven't got the AP. What happens if you come across someone who's got a 2-up save unit? Fishing for 6s then just might simply not be an issue. Trying to get those extra AP on the crossbows just might not be a thing. But then again, what if you're paying 1 point per model and then you come across goblins, where really you don't need the inbuilt AP all that much because they're probably not getting much armor anyway? And what if you come across another ranged army, someone who's going to have loads and loads of longbows, like Bretonians and Wood Elves and High Elves, lots of longbows floating around there. And if you take handguns, then you're going to find your missile troops picked apart before they even get a chance to get off a good volley. So what do you go for? Generally speaking, I feel that amongst the Empire community, a rule of cool falls in favor of the handgun. I don't know if it's just because a lot of Empire people also like Imperial Guard and 40k, and so they see gun go boom, and so, yeah, that's the option they're going to go for. Maybe it's just that handguns are actually pretty bloody cool, and in a game of swords and bows, the fact that you can get guns and cannons as Empire is pretty badass. But handguns definitely seem to win the rule of cool competition. In terms of what actually matters on the tabletop. And you might say, but Mordian, things looking good is the most important thing on the tabletop. Style over substance every day. Okay, true. But in terms of the hard factors, shall we say instead. But Mordian, handguns make me hard. No. In terms of the in-game hard factors, when should you go handguns and when should you go crossbows? Handguns are what you want to take if you know the enemy is going to come to you. If you know that fundamentally you're probably going to have a range advantage anyway, and so their range isn't a problem. because the enemy's going to come to you. They get to stay. Ponderous isn't going to be a problem because the enemy's going to come to you. So you can just stay there and just ripple away, just blast away and try and do your best impression of the final battle from The Last Samurai. I think even with Bretonnians having longbows, handguns are going to be essential for dealing with things like heavy cavalry and heavy infantry. Stuff that's going to be coming at you with a 5-up, 4-up, or 3-up save as standard. You know, infantry that are equipped with heavy armor, you want handguns to deal with that. Infantry that might have full plate or heavy armor and a shield, you're going to need handguns to deal with that. And especially if you're dealing with Bretonnian cavalry lances, which most of the knights are only 1 wound, but they're on a 3-up save and they're coming at you damn bloody quickly. You might only get 1 volley off. No matter what range you've got, you might only get 1 volley off. At which point that volley better hurt. So handguns are definitely for when you're facing off against those armies which are going to come to you and which might have a decent armor save. Even if you're not facing Bretonnians or Chaos, even facing armies like Orcs, just your standard Orc, who's going to come at you with the light armor and the shield, and they're going to be pretty tough, and you just want to make sure that you can just volley them down and just get them down. You know they're coming to you, you know you don't have to worry about ranged weapons, because Orcs, they can take bows, but most people prefer the chopper over the twanger, so that's when you want your handguns. Crossbows are for when you know that there's going to be a bit of back and forth on the ranged front. When you know that you are likely to be encountering people who are going to be able to match or possibly even exceed your range. If you are looking at someone who likes to spam longbows, you're someone that likes to bring a lot of regular bows, then crossbows are absolutely a way you want to go, because they will allow you to get the first volley in if you're facing off against someone who's using just war bows and stuff, and they will allow you to keep up with, go toe to toe with those people that are using longbows. They help you just maintain your position in the ranged game. You don't feel like you're fighting uphill or at a disadvantage. But of course, there will be those situations when you don't know who you're going against. What if you're going to a tournament? You don't know what you're going to face. There might be some meta armies that are very prevalent, so you might have to expect, oh, at some point I'm going to encounter beastmen, because for some reason beastmen on the top and everyone's running loads of beastmen or something like that. But by and large, you're going to still need to have a take all comers option. And if you twist my arm, as cool as the handgun is, I think the crossbow is going to be the take all comers option. Firstly, it's slightly cheaper, and that matters when you're playing competitively. You need to squeeze every point. Secondly, as we mentioned, it means that you'll still be able to have a great time shooting at those armies that come towards you. You still have the ability to get up to AP -2, and you don't have the problems if you come across a ranged army. That's the third point. If you face off against someone who's got a lot of bows, you're going to be very grateful that you have crossbows to be able to still engage in those fights. So I think that crossbows are the take all comers option because they still have a lot of potential AP. Handguns are for a more specialist solution. If you like both and you want a bit of both, you want to cover all your bases, I would probably go for something like 2/3 crossbows, 1/3 handguns in your army. But that covers the weapon upgrades. What about other options you have for the unit? Well, you can give each man light armor for 1 point per model. In my opinion, I just wouldn't bother. Light armor only gives you a 6-up save. If someone gets into melee with you, the light armor isn't going to protect you anyway. They're just going to cut through you. And if you're getting hit by ranged weapons, well, I don't like fishing for 6s on saves. And also, there's a lot of ranged weapons out there which have got armor bane or some kind of AP built into them anyway. The standard basic longbow, which is available to a lot of factions, has armor bane 1. So I wouldn't bother with light armor. You're already spending 7 points to 8 points per dude, depending if you've gone crossbows or handguns. No need to start making them 9 points, when in an ideal situation, they're not going to have to use the armor save. They're going to be shooting at melee units that are coming towards them, or they're going to be trying to just get that domination on the range game anyway. So I wouldn't go for light armor. It's an expensive upgrade. Save you points. You've then got the usual upgrades of full command. So you've got 1 sergeant for 5 points, 1 standard bearer for 5 points, and 1 musician for 5 points. Again, here, I really wouldn't bother with a lot of these. Taking standard bearers is likely to just give points to your enemy. If they run down your melee troops and capture the standard, that's going to give them, what, like an extra 25 points? Seemed like a good idea to me. It's not going to help you win combat res anyway, because you're a missile troop. So if someone gets into melee with you, they're going to tear you to pieces, and having that banner ain't going to do diddly squat. Having the musician is potentially useful, because if someone does shoot a lot of your state martial troops and you haven't taken light armor, and then you take 25% casualties and then you flee, you might want to have the musician to try and rally them back. So the musician is okay. Like, it's an alright one. I wouldn't be against anyone taking the musician and the sergeant, but I definitely wouldn't bother with the standard in this unit. But then we get to the good stuff, and these are the upgrades for the sergeant. The first one is a brace of pistols. Oh, by the way, little side note, all of these upgrades replace his crossbow or handgun, whichever one he's equipped with. So, going back to it. First one is a brace of pistols. These have only got a 12-inch range. They're strength 4, AP -1, armor bane 1. So very similar to a handgun, just half the range. The advantage is that you get multiple shots and quick shot. So multiple shots 2 means you can fire 2 shots from these things, so half the range but double the shots. And quick shot means that you don't suffer the penalty from moving and shooting, and also you can stand and shoot from any distance, not just far away. So they are a good brace pistols in general are very good, but on handgunners or crossbows, I don't think they're the right choice. And that is simply because your unit wants to be at range shooting stuff, so the 12-inch range is a bit of a problem. And moving and shooting is all well and good on the pistols, but the rest of you guys are ponderous no matter what, whether it's a crossbow or a handgun. So brace pistols are something you want to be looking at for your characters, but not for your handgun sergeants. Now, another 5-point upgrade is the repeater handgun. And oh baby, this is tasty. In my opinion, this is the go-to. You want to put this on every handgun sergeant that you take him. They're just so good. So a repeater handgun has a 24-inch range, strength 4, AP -1, armor bane, just like your standard handgun. The difference is that it gets multiple shots 3. So for 5 points, you can upgrade your sergeant to put out the same amount of firepower as if you had taken 3 guys with handguns. I mean, it's a no-brainer. The fact that the sergeant with repeater handgun costs you in total an upgrade of 10 points, but gives you the firepower of 2 handgunners, which would cost you 3 handgunners, sorry, which would cost you 24 points. It's just, yeah, there's no difference there. Of course, you also have to take into account the cost of the sergeant model as well, who in a unit of handgunners would also cost 8 points. So I guess you could say that the sergeant with repeater handgun costs 18 points, but 3 additional handgunners cost you 24 points. So either way, you're still saving 6 points and getting a lot more firepower. But the big reason why I think repeater handguns are so damn good is it goes back to what we were talking about before about only being able to fire in 1 rank. If you could only fire in 1 rank, taking realistically more than 10 missile troops in one go, you're not going to be able to fire them all. A big rank of 10, you can it's going to be a bit annoying, but you can probably get away with it. But if you want to go for a smaller unit that has the same amount of firepower, you could literally go for a unit of 6 or 7 handgunners and then give the sergeant a repeater handgun. And that way you are getting the benefits of having a 10-man squad without having the huge footprint, which might make your army somewhat cumbersome. However, and it is a big however, I must say, as good as the repeater handgun is, and the brace pistols, it's important to note that if you do fire multiple shots, then you do suffer an additional -1 to hit penalty. So it might feel great blazing away with the repeater, but you also might not hit anything. That is true for your brace pistols as well. Like I said, they also have multiple shots. But don't worry, you can always choose to fire them single shot. So you don't have to suffer the -1. You can take your brace pistols and just shoot one shot, no -1 to hit. Same with the repeater handgun. So there is a trade-off there. You can maybe, if you just want to do some long-range volley fire, just do the one shot. Or if you're like, screw it, more dice, more opportunities, multiple shots every time, just Gatling gun down with the repeater. And then we get to possibly one of the coolest weapons in the entire Empire. And you find it on this cheeky little missile tube unit. They can take it. It is the Hochland Long Rifle. For all of you pro Call of Duty players who like to 360 no scope, this is for you. The Hochland Long Rifle has a 36-inch range. I think that makes it one of, if not the most long-ranged weapon that you can put on one of your standard infantry people. And I'm not just talking in the Empire, I'm talking in the game. 36-inch range is a really big deal. It's strength 4, it's AP -1, and it's armor bane 1. So it's like a really long-ranged handgun. It is ponderous, so it's -2 if you move and shoot with it, and it is cumbersome, which means you can't stand and shoot with it. But here's the biggie. A model armed with a Hochland Long Rifle can target a specific model within its target unit, such as champions or a character. Oh, it's so cool. It's a genuine sniper rifle, and being able to just pop shots off at characters, oh, really, really good. There's so many different ways you could utilize this. Is there an enemy wizard? You know, units which tend to be relatively fragile that rely upon hiding in squads. Well, no problem. You can use the Hochland Long Rifle just to target them. Is there a unit that you're hoping to get a charge off where you know, like an enemy character's in there, but you know that if you issue the challenge, then they'll just put the unit champion forward first and slow you down. Well, you know what? Take your Hochland Long Rifle. You might not be able to kill that enemy character one go, but pop the head off the unit champion, and then, you know, get next the following turn, get a charge off. You might be able to avoid getting challenge blocked for, you know, at a vital point. So I think the Hochland Long Rifle is really good, and I also think it's definitely a good upgrade for your crossbowmen, you take all comers. Again, if it comes down to which one of these upgrades would I take as a take all comers, if I was going to tournament, I didn't know what I was going to be facing off against, I'd probably go for the Hochland Long Rifle over some others. And that's simply because the repeater handgun is something that goes well with handgunners, and handgunners, as we said, are kind of a semi-specific solution, whereas crossbows are your more take all comers. Well, the repeater handgun doesn't work well with the crossbows because of the range difference, but the Hochland Long Rifle complements them perfectly. Yes, it is the most expensive upgrade at 8 points, but I firmly believe that's 8 points well spent. And don't forget, there is no real limit on how many units of state troops you can take, and you can take 2 detachments per. You take 2 detachments per small squad as well, which I'm not sure if detachments can take upgrades, but presuming that they can, would allow you to get quite a lot of Hotshot long rifles into your army. Even if for some reason detachments, and apologies, the rules of detachments are something I'm not 100% familiar with now. I'm going to do an in-depth video on them later. But even presuming detachments can't take Hotshot long rifles, the fact that you could, get a whole bunch of ranged state troops, give them crossbows, and then also take a Hotshot long rifle with them. I mean, that would be 70 points for 10, plus 5 points for the sergeant, plus 8 points for the rifle. 83 points? Even if you took sort of 2 or 3 units of those, that would be really decent. But if your detachments can take the Hotshot long rifle, then you're looking at 35 points, 40 points, 48 points per sniper squad. That's pretty decent. But either way, however it works out, I do think that the Hotshot long rifle is a very cool weapon with a lot of potential, and I think that I foresee many stories in the future, many players who will be able to tell a tale of the time when their Hotshot long rifle got that sniper kill at the perfect moment and it caused them to win the game. So, some high Lich Priest getting his head blown off, some champion getting bodied before a cavalry charge crashes home. There's going to be something where the sniper gets its man. We've just got a couple of other upgrades for your state missile troops. 0 to 1 units per 1,000 points may be upgraded with the drilled special rule for 1 point per model. Drilled allows you to have a free redress of the ranks, not a free reform. So redress of the ranks means you could go from being 10 wide, 1 deep on your ranks, and then you can redress them to be 5 wide and 2 deep if you wanted to. I don't think it's very useful on state missile troops. It might be okay if you're only taking sort of 1 unit and you go for a big wide formation to start the game off with. You get a good volley and then you redress the ranks into a more solid block. Might allow you to create quite a decent screening line. Might be useful if your state troops are getting hunted down by some annoying little ambushy, skirmishy thing. Maybe a little bit of fast cavalry, the traditional kryptonite of the state missile troops, or any missile troops and war machines. Being able to go, oh, these guys are coming at me, better reform into a better combat res formation. But it's got potential. It's got potential, but I probably wouldn't bother with it. Again, your state troops are kind of pricey at 7 points base, so it really makes it difficult to justify going for those other upgrades. You can also purchase a magical standard worth up to 25 points. That might be pretty good. I'm gonna cover magical standards and good combos, like the best magical standards for your state missile troops, the best standards and war gear for your veteran state troops, that kind of stuff. All of that, all that magical combos are going to be covered in a separate video. But it's nice to know that you can get a magic standard on these guys. But again, unless there's a standard out there that is particularly a must-have for missile troops, and it also happens to cost 25 points or less, I probably wouldn't bother taking a standard in this unit, simply because you are going to invite your opponent to try and hunt them down and kill them, even more so than people like to do to missile troops anyway. Finally, we get to the special rules. State troops have close order, which means that they can benefit up to +2 for combat res for their rank bonus. Not a big deal here. You're unlikely to have lots of ranks of state troops, because if you have lots of rank, then you have lots of people that aren't shooting, so probably not a big deal. Close order and drilled would pair quite nicely if you had like a squad of 15 of these. You wanted to quickly redress close order and then try and beat the little harrying unit through combat res. It works quite nicely there, but otherwise close order probably won't pop up all that much. And you can take them as either a detachment or a regiment unit. Personally, I think that state missile troops will make a brilliant detachment. I think being able to have a big block of spearmen fully dialed up for defensive duties and supporting those spearmen on either side with a detachment of missile troops, meaning that whilst the spearmen themselves, because they're only strength 3, probably won't be able to do all that much damage, although they will get lots of attacks because of being able to fight an extra rank, because your detachments will get to stand and shoot, and their casualties will count towards combat res. As long as your detachments don't get picked off beforehand by enemy ranged, you could find quite decent situations where a block of spearmen, it chooses to hold, the 2 detachments choose to stand and shoot, the detachments inflict 2 to 3 casualties, the state troops inflict 1 to 2 casualties, and then you've got all the combat res where suddenly your unit of spearmen, who on their own might have got, let's say, 2 kills, 2 ranks and a banner, might have got 5 combat res, suddenly find themselves getting a very impressive 7, 8, 9 combat res because of the casualties inflicted during the detachment stand and shoot. So I think state missile troops are going to be really good detachment units. I don't think you'll want to take big regiment units of them unless, like I said, hills become very prevalent. Overall, whilst your state missile troops may not be as super duper flexible as your melee state troops, you will find that they are a very good unit. I think what separates them and what is their best quality is no matter what weapon you're going for, you're spamming a lot of strength 4 attacks. You're going to be able to stack the wounds up if you take enough of these guys. The big question is what's really going to decide whether you basically just take them as supporting detachments or if you take big regimental units of them is going to be the terrain that you play on. If you've got hills, then you'll go for the regiments. If not, then I think you'll find most blocks of your melee state troops are going to have an accompanying detachment or 2. But I'd be very surprised if you don't find most Empire players taking at least a smattering, if not a decent portion of these guys to help their line infantry get the edge and win the combats. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. Are you a fan of the state missile troops? And if so, detachment or regiment, and the big one, crossbow or handgun? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing. Truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members. So thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, and they have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a big shout out to Bon Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Varney. Thank you guys so much. Your incredible generosity is a massive part of how I'm able to do Mordy and Glory full time, and it is a big driving force behind the channel. But I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Thank you for watching, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.